only available when the project is considered in its entirety. Let's face it, the retaining structure is simply not necessary to control erosion stemming from a bluff top. This is a moving easement, it doesn't need to be protected, and there's currently not a retaining wall on this parcel. Regrading and installing adequate drainage would solve the erosion issue. The CDP fails to comply with the county's LCP and the Walla Town Plan. Specifically, the project does not comply with LCP policies 3.4-10, 3.4-12, or the Mendocino County Coastal Zoning Code, section 20.500.020, parentheses E, parentheses 4, which specifically prohibits bluff face retaining structures when new development is proposed on bluff top parcels. New development is what you've been hearing about today. We believe there are many aspects of this entire project that deserve merit, particularly expanding the supermarket. We don't have an issue with that. We don't even have an issue necessarily with the paved parking lot. Yet we do believe that valuable ecological and public resources, specifically a stable bluff and a public trail, should not be wrecked simply because the applicant is attempting to overdevelop his property. The planned retaining structure is not necessary. Feasible and available alternatives exist that will adequately control erosion while allowing for the applicant's desire for parking. Again, we respectfully request that you deny CDP 55-2006 and give the applicant a chance to resubmit the redesigned project that's in keeping with the spirit of the California Environmental Quality Act, our LCP, as well as the Walla Town Plan. Thanks very much for your consideration.
Thank you. To the clerk, how much time is remaining? You're completed? Yes. Okay, thank you. To the applicant, 5 minutes, please.
I'm George Rao again, engineer for the project, and I'll reserve a couple minutes for Mr. Bauer. You have 5 minutes or 2 minutes?
5 minutes.
Okay. Okay. I'd just like to have you turn to photo number 7 of Mr. Bauer's packet, which shows the top of the septic tank at the edge of the bluff. This is clearly existing development, which needs to be protected. Another interesting aspect of this is if you look at the left-hand side of the picture, you'll see a little stake with an orange flag in it. That is a story pole for the wall we're talking about. This gives you an idea of what the wall will look like at this location. We're not talking about a huge bluff-destroying wall, and I think it's very important to understand that. I think it's also very important to understand that much of the mitigations here will actually improve the environment, and in particular the vegetation, because Mr. Bauer is committing to a professional restoration company coming in, doing a good job of restoring the vegetation in the area to native plant vegetation, removing the weeds that are there, not only at the wall, but down below by the estuary. If you read the conditions of approval clearly or carefully, it indicates he has to do that. So the concern that people can't plant and can't work and can't maintain this planted community is a false concern and shouldn't be considered strongly. You've heard ample testimony that this geogrid wall promotes vegetation. That's one of the main purposes for the people who developed it. One of my concerns originally was that the wall would not last, but the guarantee by the company that produces this wall is 125 years. So that concern has been gone away from my standpoint. This argument over existing development versus new development, I think you have to sort out the fact that there's an existing parking lot there. Yeah, it's gravel, but people use it all the time. There's an existing septic tank, is not the right word, but it's a pumping tank for the Community Services District that's threatened today, not tomorrow, not next week, not in my pipe dream. It's there. It needs to be fixed. The bluff is eroding around it. We have looked at a number of alternatives, and I believe it's the one we've selected is by far the least environmentally damaging alternative, and it preserves the trail as well as preserving the man's private property and makes it parking available. Again, I would like to ask you to consider my recommended findings in any motion you might make to approve this project, and I'll reserve the 2 minutes for John Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Bauer.
I hope you can bear with me for just a few minutes. I know that all of you as supervisors take this project on very seriously. It's your job to be caretakers for our world out there, whether it be a very heavy business world, a developer's world, or an environmental world, and you have a very difficult decision today. I know in my heart that this area of your jurisdiction, the South Coast, is probably the farthest thing from many of your minds, but it's the closest thing for us. And it's also the gateway to Mendocino County. And what I've been doing in town and what I'm proposing is all very nicely done, as you can tell from the folks that have spoken today. It's done with an eye for environmental caution. It's done with an eye for future community needs. It's done with an eye for helping you supervisors do your job, because your job is to give us a community action plan, to give us a new streetscape, to give us undergrounding. And myself, as what I consider myself a visionary in certain respects, it's important for me to look forward ahead of where you're going and help grease the tracks for what you have to do. And I know that there are some short-sighted folks or narrow-minded folks that don't see the entire picture. I was born in Santa Rosa and lived all my life, with exception of a little time in schooling, in 1948. Since 1948 I've been there, and I've seen this town change. What I'd like to say is I love this town. I've committed myself to it, and if we can't help the things that are really important to us, the parking, the environment, the views, the trail, I'm not destroying the trail. I'm making the trail a better, more visual spot for people in town. If people see me as that, I will stop and I will leave. I cannot afford this kind of friction. You don't want it, I don't want it, and I don't think the other people in town want it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bauer. Okay. The appellants and the applicants have finished their comments. Back to the staff.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, what I've neglected to do is mention my rationale for approving the project, and it's found in your board summary sheet that, and most of these have been touched upon today, so I'll be very brief. The project protects existing development, specifically the existing parking area and the septic infrastructure. Number two, the project improves drainage, treating it and taking it offsite away from the trail area. The project decreases erosion and treats the parking lot stormwater, which is not currently treated. Number three, the project is located in the Gualala Village mixed-use zoning district, and I think, at least in my mind, that was important in that we're trying to concentrate development. If we're going to concentrate development, you have to expect urban improvements that go along with that. Number four was that the staff report had recommended approval, and I felt that the information provided by the applicant supplemented that information. And number five, and maybe most important, was that the board has appointed the Gualala Municipal Advisory Council, and that council had reviewed this project at the time, the standard retaining wall, and had voted 4-2 in favor of it. Did want to briefly talk about the issue of segmentation or piecemealing that was brought up. Normally, piecemealing is brought up to avoid CEQA. This